Okay, what we're looking at today is the triangle sum theorem and isosceles triangles. This is going to be very short and very easy, kind of like yesterday's. Do y'all know what all three angles in a triangle add up to be? 180. So that's what I want you to write right at the top. Add to 180, and it's talking about all three angles in a triangle. Okay, so if we know that all three angles in a triangle add to 180, then when we want to find this measure A right here, since we don't have it, I'm going to go ahead and let it be x. So I know that x plus 51 plus 34 should equal 180 degrees. Then I would combine 51 plus 34. That would give me 85 equals 180. Then to get x by itself, I would subtract 85 from both sides, and x would equal 95. So A would be 95 degrees. Okay? So let's look at another one like that. So let's look at number 2. In number 2, we don't have the measure of m. So I'm going to let m be x, and I know that x plus 22 plus 34, all three angles in a triangle, should add to 180. So this would be x plus 22 plus 34 gives me 56. Okay, I would subtract 56 from both sides to get x by itself, and x would equal 124. So m is 124 degrees. Is that pretty simple? Okay, now I wanted to show you how to set it up that way, so that you know formally how to do it. Now, I could, like in number 3, instead of setting it up as x plus 67 plus 59 equals 180, I could just add 67 plus 59. What would that give me? 126. And then I know this adds to 180, so I would subtract from 180 to find what's left, and what would x equal? 54. I'm okay with you doing it that way as well, but I wanted you to know how to formally set up for when we're not just given numbers as angles. Okay? All right, the isosceles triangle theorem part 1. Go ahead and highlight this, star it, put it on a note card, put it in Quizlet, something, because you're going to have to know this. It's a very simple principle. You just have to know it and remember it. So what the isosceles triangle theorem part 1 says is if two sides of a triangle are congruent, then the angles opposite of those sides are congruent. So two congruent sides means that the two angles opposite of those sides are congruent. It's a really simple principle. Now, sometimes we struggle with opposites, what opposite means. So when it's talking about an opposite angle, it's talking about the angle, the only angle that doesn't touch the side. Okay, so I will show you the first example, and then I'll ask you about the second one. So looking at this first example, I see that I have tick marks here, which means that side ML is going to be congruent to side MN. Okay, now that means something about the angles. If ML is congruent to MN, then the angles opposite of those are also congruent. So the only angle that is not touching ML, because M is part of ML and L is part of ML, the only one not touching it is angle N. So this is opposite of the side or across from it. Okay? Then if I'm looking at side MN, the only angle not touching MN is angle L. This is the angle across from the side. So this tells me that angle L is congruent to angle N. Now, what angle do they ask me to find in this problem? Angle L. So that's what I'm going to look for. Now, what do all sides in a triangle add to be? 180. So I'm going to start out doing 180 minus the angle that I'm given, which is 48. 180 minus 48 gives me 132. So 132 is L and N together. I only want L. Since L and M are both equal, I'm going to take this and I'm going to divide it equally. So what do you think I would divide 132 by? By 2. So I'm going to take 132, divide it by 2, and each of those angles are 66. So my answer is 66, but I'm going to go ahead and put 66 here and 66 here. So we have 48, 66, 66. If you wanted to check yourself to make sure you did that right, you would add all three of these back together, and as long as it equals 180, you did it right. If you got more than 180, then we went wrong somewhere. Okay? I know that this one says that we want to find J, but I actually want us to find H. So I'm going to change this to H, and I'm going to make the measure of J 68. Okay? So what two sides here are equal? HJ and what? JK, because of the tick marks. Okay? So what side is across from, sorry, not what side, what angle is opposite of JH? K is the only angle not touching that side. What angle is across from JK? H. So what do we know about these angles? They're congruent. So H is going to be congruent to K. Now, we want to find H, so how would I start out doing that? What do I know about all three sides in a triangle? They add to 180, so I'm going to take 180, and what am I going to take away from it? What do we know? 68. So that's going to leave me with 112. Now, is H by itself 112? No. H and K together are 112. So if they're equal, how can I split it so that they stay equal? Divide by 2. So 112 divided by 2 is 56 degrees. So H is 56 degrees. Does that make sense to you guys? All right. Let's look at number 3 now. So in number 3, what two sides are equal there? For number 3? QR and SR, because they're the ones with the tick marks. What angle is across from RS? Q. Okay, and Q is 52. What angle is across from QR? S. So what does that mean S is? It is also 52. Then they asked me to find R. So how do I find one angle in a triangle when I'm given two of them? We add both of these together and then subtract from what all of them should be. So they all should add up to be 180. 52 plus 52 is 104. And so I'm going to take 104 away from 180 to see what's left for R. So when I take 104 from 180, that leaves me with 76 degrees for R. Okay. We're going to try another one like that. So let's look at number 2. So number 2, what two sides are equal there? ML and NL. Very good, because they have the tick marks. So what angles are across, or what angle is across from ML? N. Okay, what angle is across from NL? M, which is 56. Okay, so what does that mean N is? 56. And they want us to find L. So how would we set up to get angle L? Very good. We add 56 plus 56, which gives me 112. I'm going to subtract 112 from what measure? 180 minus 112. And so L is 68. Okay. What about number 3? They want me to find the angle measure of W. So W is right here. We don't know it. But I have that X is 43 and Z is 83. What would we do to find W? All three of these should add to be what? 180. So we're going to do 43 plus 83, which gives me 126. Is that right? So I'm going to do 180 minus 126 to get what's left here. So when I subtract, that would give me 54 for W. Okay, any questions on how to find an angle in an isosceles or just a regular triangle? All right, let's look at the back then. So in the back, what do you notice about the angles in these? They have letters. So we're not just going to be able to add them together and subtract from 180, which is why I showed you the other way of setting them up. So if I'm given A is 3x, B is 4x, and C is 2x, how would I set up to solve for the measures, or for x? Very good. We'd take angle plus angle plus angle equals 180, because all three angles in a triangle should add to equal 180. So this would be 3x plus 4x plus 2x equals 180. 3 plus 4 is 7. 7 plus 2 is 9x equals 180. How do I get x by itself? Divide by 9, and x equals 20. Now, what measure did they ask us for? A. So I would take x and plug it in. 3 times 20 is 60. So measure A would be 60 degrees. Okay? What do y'all think about those? Are they any harder? Okay, what about number 6? How would we set that one up to solve?
2x minus 9 plus 3x plus 4 equals 9.
Okay, so Abby says...
No, just kidding.
2x minus 9 plus 3x plus 4 equals 90. Layla asks, should it be 2x minus 9 plus 3x plus 4 plus 90 equals 180? Okay, so it can actually be either one, okay? Because what is going to happen when I move it if I moved this 90 over first? I'd subtract 90 from both sides. This would go to 90, and we'd end up with the same equation. You can set it up either way, whichever way makes more sense to you, because we know this piece right here is 90, so the only thing that E and F could add up to B would be 90. Okay? So I'm going to solve the second one. So I'm going to combine my like terms. I have 2x, 3x, which gives me 5x. I have negative 9, 4, and 90. So that's going to give me 94, but then I have to subtract 9 would give me 85. Okay, and then from there we would subtract 85. And that would give me 5x equals 95. Divide by 5. And x equals 19. How would I find measure E? Very good. Plug in. 2 times 19 minus 9. And what does that give us? 29 degrees. Okay, so we're good with angles? Okay, so the last thing that I want to show you is the second part of the Isosceles theorem notes, which tells me that if two angles of a triangle are congruent, then the sides opposite of those angles are congruent. So that's basically the same thing that we just learned. Before we said if the sides are congruent, the angles opposite are congruent. This time we're saying if the angles are congruent, the sides opposite are congruent. So if you know one, it's really easy to know the other. It's just kind of the same thing backwards. So looking at number 1, what two angles are congruent here? What two angles are congruent? F and H. Okay? What side is opposite of H? G is an angle and not a side. So what side is opposite of H? FG. Okay? So from here all the way to here. What side is opposite of F? GH, which is 20. So what do we know about these two sides if they're opposite of congruent angles? They're equal, or they're congruent. So how could I set up to solve for x if I know these are congruent? 4x minus 8 equals 20. So to solve for x, we would add 8 to both sides. That would give me 4x equals 28. I would divide both sides by 4. X would equal 7. And how could I find FG? Okay, I can plug it in, but also, what do I know about FG and GH? They're equal, so what is it? 20, without having to plug in. Okay, and then let's try one more. So let's look at 3. What two angles are equal there? S and V. What side is opposite of V? ST. And what side is opposite of S? VT. Okay? So what is this right here? 5x minus 1. It's a distractor. Okay? We are actually going to need it because it asks us for SV. So I'm going to write it up here. But in the problem, I'm going to come down here and exit out so I don't get confused because I don't actually need it. So to solve, since I know this side and this side is congruent, I'm going to set these equal, and I'm going to get 2x plus 8 equals 7x minus 12. I'm going to get all my x's on one side, all my numbers on the other, so I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. That's going to give me 8 equals 5x minus 12. I'm going to add 12 to both sides. That's going to give me 5x equals 20, which means x equals 4. And then to get SV, I'm going to have to plug 4 back in. That's going to give me 5 times 4 minus 1. So SV equals 19.